Philadelphia, 1824. The medical capital of a young nation. Inside the prestigious anatomy theaters, the great surgeons of the era were hungry for progress. They were desperate to map out the mysteries of the human body. But the path to discovery was blocked by the laws of men. So science entered into a most unholy of alliances. Under the cover of midnight, men, known as resurrectionists, rose from the damp earth. They were armed with shovels, pickaxes, and a price list for human remains. These were the ghost laborers of progress, stalking the industry's cemeteries to feed a growing industry that never slept. This wasn't just grave robbing, it was theft of the soul, a ghoulish market where the sanctity of the grave was traded for coin, and where the dead were peddled by the inch, and never allowed to rest. This is Gaslight Gallows, historical true crimes. Medical progress is often viewed as a beacon of bright light. But in the 19th century, that light was fueled by a deep, penetrating darkness. Today, we go inside the anatomy theaters, and we visit the moonlit cemeteries, and we meet the men who turn the loss of loved ones into a ghoulish trade, and they turn science into a moral battlefield. This is the Resurrection Men. On a freezing Tuesday in November, a young woman named Eliza trudged to the edge of the potter's field. She clutched a handful of winter violets, the tears from her father's funeral still fresh on her cheeks. She had come to say a final goodbye, but as she stepped through the morning fog, the silence of the graveyard was shattered by a sight that would haunt her forever. The earth, the very soil she had packed down with her own hands, was churned into chaos. Mud was scattered across the grass. Boot prints were stamped all over the sacred ground. And there, stark and terrifying against the gray morning light, lay the splintered wreckage of her father's coffin lid. The grave was empty. Eliza tried to scream, but she choked. As the morning rain mixed with her tears, a cold, gut-wrenching realization took hold. Her father was not resting. Somewhere in Philadelphia, he was lying on a slab.
If you're enjoying this story, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you always know when a new story is uploaded.
Eliza's nightmare was the byproduct of a city consumed by a dark hunger. In the early 1800s, Philadelphia wasn't just a city of brotherly love. It was a machine of ambition. Doctors flocked here, starving to unlock the secrets of the human body. But the law stood in their way. Religious taboos forbade dissection. Only the bodies of executed criminals were fair game. It was a bottleneck. Science was starving for its essential ingredient: flesh. From the shadows of the alleyways, a dark breed of entrepreneur emerged: the Resurrection Men. They were not doctors. They were wolves in trench coats, driven by the oldest impulse of all: profit. Their targets were people like Eliza's father, the poor, the defenseless. They knew the rhythms of the city and the exact depth of the fresh earth. Under the cloak of night, armed with specialized tools, they descended upon the cemeteries. They were relentless. They would not stop until they delivered their grim merchandise to the highest bidder. The result left thousands of citizens, just like Eliza, horrified and violated. But this sinister marketplace was just getting started. The art of the Resurrection Man was one of cold efficiency, and few were as efficient as the notorious Phantom, known simply as Old Isaac. Isaac wasn't a monster of folklore. He was a businessman of the macabre. He didn't see a grieving father or a beloved sister. When he looked at a fresh mound of earth, he saw a payday. Isaac and his crew worked with military precision. Upon identifying a fresh grave, marked with the wilted flowers of the grieving, they went to work. But digging up a whole coffin was an amateur's mistake. Instead, old Isaac dug a narrow foxhole at the head of the grave, creating a lever point. With ropes and a heavy iron pry bar, he would pop the coffin lid, snapping the hinges with a sickening crack that echoed in the dark. Then, using a specialized iron meat hook, he snared the body and dragged it out through the raw earth. Time was their enemy. From grave to cart, old Isaac could clear a body in less than 40 minutes. The precious cargo, often still warm, was bundled into a sack and vanished into the alleyways. As Isaac's wealth grew, so did the city's terror. Families hired guards and built iron cages to protect their dead. But the resurrection men always found a workaround. They grew rich on the destruction of peace. And for every new empty grave, the sanctity of death was shattered by a single haunting question. Whose loved one is next? Beyond the anguish of the graveyards, a darker conspiracy took shape. For every corpse old Isaac unearthed in the mud, a secret was unlocked within the gaslit colleges. And standing at the receiving door were men like Dr. William Forbes. A distinguished professor at Jefferson Medical College, Forbes was a pioneer, but his brilliance cast a long, bloody shadow. In his chilling, quiet dissection rooms, anonymous forms became textbooks. Under Forbes' intense gaze, the blueprint of life was laid bare. He wasn't just mapping veins, he was mastering the body's fragile secrets. A profound triumph of modern medicine, fueled by a morally bankrupt supply. Forbes didn't ask where the bodies came from. He didn't have to. But the grave does not keep its secrets. As more bodies vanished, the public fury erupted into a visceral roar. The blame shifted from the vermin in the alleyways to the elite in the academies. Suddenly, Philadelphia's revered colleges became fortresses under siege. Mobs descended upon the gates with torches and rage. Men like Dr. Forbes were branded unholy receivers. Their hands, once thought pristine, were now seen as stained with the same grave dirt as old Isaac's. The dread finally forced a reckoning. A civilized nation could no longer tolerate the desecration of its dead. The people demanded justice. The law finally caught up with the Scalpel. Dr. William Forbes stood trial, a public spectacle that forced Philadelphia to stare into its own dark reflection. While men like Forbes fought to save their reputations, the scandal exposed the rot at the heart of the system. It became clear that the solution lay not in iron cages and armed watchmen, but in legislation. In the wake of the outrage, the landmark Anatomy Acts were passed. These laws created legal avenues for schools to acquire bodies, the unclaimed dead from prisons and almshouses. It was an ethically thorny compromise, born of necessity, but it finally silenced the shovels. With legal supply lines established, the dark trade of old Isaac withered and died. The phantom of the yards faded back into the obscurity of the gutter. His profession became nothing more than a chilling chapter in the history books. The widespread fear of body snatching receded. Yet for thousands of citizens like Eliza, the memory lingered like a spectral presence, a stark reminder of the desperate lengths to which men would go, from the esteemed man of science to the common man of crime. Today, the Resurrection Men are largely forgotten. Their names are buried deeper than the bodies they once exhumed, but their story remains a potent echo. It reminds us that in humanity's relentless pursuit of enlightenment, we have often carved our path through the darkest, most unholy of grounds. Grounds where the shadows still whisper. The whisper of the unquiet dead. The era of the body snatchers ended and eventually led to laws that helped govern medical science. But the price that was paid could be found in the soil of Philadelphia's cemeteries. It's a chilling reminder that even the most noble of pursuits can be built on the foundation of darkness. To bring this dark chapter of Gaslight Gallows to life, we once again used what we call a throwback storybook style, where we utilize AI as a digital illustrator to help reconstruct scenes that history was not able to photograph. Now, each story in this series will have a different style as we build to the point where we can actually bring these stories to a full life with a live-action series. Now, if you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like and subscribe and share, and also join our community. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon, and you can also reach us at our email, which is info@wildyetiFilms.com. And if you haven't seen it, go check out our first series called Expedition Tales of the Big Bend right here on this channel. I'm Grant Kaufman. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter.